So in case you guys didn't catch it, Russia started off the new moon with this massive ground assault all across Ukraine. There is so much to cover, so let's start off with the south, since that's a completely new front. We'll go over Zaporozhye and Kherson together as they kind of go hand in hand. We should probably go back in history a bit to get a good understanding of the whole situation though. It might be a bit confusing for some, as we've gone from this huge push to Crimea by Ukraine to now Russia is on the move. What happened to the Zelensky big push to Crimea from Zaporozhye? Well, the first major dent was this Kherson poison pill gift from General Armageddon that was hand delivered to Zelensky. Yeah, if you recall, Ukraine had this massive buildup of forces barreling in on Kherson. Well, after organizing a trap which included leaving behind mines, tripwire, and even a handful of Russian spies, the general put together a masterful retreat which actually resulted in Ukraine taking heavy losses during the Russian retreat. The spies gave up Ukrainian positions and Russia bombarded them with rockets and artillery, and later with missiles and even bombing raids. Eventually the spies were discovered, but this went on for weeks. Yeah, there hasn't been much coverage on Kherson since the withdrawal, because there hasn't been any territorial changes. We warned you guys this was going to turn into the next Snake Island. Look at how many troops Ukraine has left now. Now let's recall, when Ukraine tried to move their forces to Zaporozhye region, Russia launched a huge missile strike on a southern train station and took out a car full of armored vehicles and an estimated 100 soldiers. Now this is just one example. To make a long story short, it was simply a nightmare for Ukrainian troops to escape the region just to get redeployed to the east. Some estimates projected they were going to lose 1/3 of their equipment in the whole fiasco. So let's get back to the Zaporozhye front where this recent movement has taken place. So over the past few months, the Russians have consistently taken out air defense with rockets and missiles. It seems that this has extremely weakened their air defenses, as we're hearing more and more reports of aircraft carrying out missions in the region. Next, we have Zelensky's moves of desperation, where he was continually drawing on forces from the Zaporozhye region to fill the void taking place in the east in Bakhmut, Solidar, and Marinka, which we'll get into that later in the show, but they moved their artillery and heavy armor, and if you look at what they have in the region now, it looks like some rocket launchers have showed up in the north, but no full artillery brigades. So today we're hearing that the Russian troops were able to successfully perform the combination of reconnaissance with artillery, and they forced the Ukrainians to retreat from their positions. And so according to the Ministry of Defense, they have liberated the town of Lubkovy. Also in the region, they destroyed a hangar with armament and hardware, and also a counter battery radar. As a result of the fighting today, Ukraine lost 90 soldiers, 4 armored vehicles, 3 motor vehicles, and 3 howitzers. In Kherson, they're reporting that they destroyed 1 Paladin self-propelled artillery system as well as 2 howitzers. Sounds like the Russian aviation was in the region too, as they shot down an Mi-8 Ukrainian helicopter. So if you look at this Rybar map, you can see that today Russia gained quite a bit of ground, and some reports say they took over up to 5 small villages on this front. Most importantly, however, is they have this Orikov in what appears to be a cauldron. Now I've placed some icons on this Institute for the Study of War map, and as you can see, Ukraine is greatly outnumbered if we take a look at the map with the Russian deployment on it. So the biggest problem here is that Ukraine lacks any tanks and artillery in the region. Also, we're hearing news that Russia is now carrying out aviation strikes on the Zaporozhye front. This meets that same pattern of taking out air defense and then bringing in their air force to support their offensives. Also note that Russia has the high ground around Orikov. So we reported the other day that Russia had reactivated their offensive on the Marinka front after the fall of Solidar. Well, yesterday there were reports that Russia had captured the remaining high-rises in the city, and today it appears that they have the entire city under control. The area that Ukraine had managed to occupy for the last month or so has been described as a graveyard. Wave after wave of reinforcements came into the sector only to meet the same fate, and it sounds like it's finally done. Apparently they're just looking for any remaining Ukrainians that are hiding. Let's hope they don't send in any more reinforcements into the area. There's some drone footage floating around out there on the internet about this, showing this whole disaster zone. So after clearing the underground communications in the outskirts of Solidar, the Wagner assault group has developed an offensive in the Blahodny direction. Fighting continues in Bakhmut, Wagner pressing Ukrainian formation in the meat factory area. Zelensky is redeploying additional forces to the town, trying to slow down the advance. So we're getting word that the Wagner group cleared out an entire huge area around Klashivka. So on a good note, it looks like we're starting this new moon by watching the establishment panic. Looks like we've managed to bust a gaping hole through their whole fake matrix. The floodgates are open and the so-called conspiracy theories are spreading like wildfire all over the semi-mainstream networks. Musk freeing the bird continues to have its effect across the entire globe. Meanwhile, the puppet regime continues to parrot the same old rhetoric in a desperate attempt to hypnotize its followers. So it sounds like the US is going to charge forward and send a $2.5 billion weapons package straight into the Ukrainian fire. Meanwhile, Europe continues to be happy to disarm themselves. They are going to make it easy for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to move in right after Russia is done with this Ukraine war. I do want to remind everyone that Zelensky has the media on lockdown, so we're not getting the whole picture on these missile strikes, as I would imagine it's a really desperate situation, especially given the reaction that we're seeing out of the West and European countries as they, in a frenzy, are sending in as much arms as they can. In the meantime, it's a race to get to Kiev before those weapons arrive.